Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Good to have you here. I have found that doing some of these in two parts helps me have a little bit more time in the evening. So some days when I'm super busy, I'm going to break these into two. This week, my daughter's having oral surgery tomorrow. Then I've got to get ready to go to Idaho Friday. So crazy week for me. So we may not get in as many lunchtime lives this week just due to the fact it's crazy busy for me. Before we get started, you know the drill. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video, share it with your friends, and you can ring my bell if you want notifications of when I post new content. Just click that little bell icon. Music fact of the day, the song Louie Louie by the Kingsmen. It tells a story of a lovesick sailor's desire to get back home to his girl. This song was deemed one of the dirtiest songs in the 60s and actually prompted an FBI investigation. Back on the stand today is FBI Agent Hart. We left off on Friday talking about Lori finding out she wasn't the beneficiary of Charles's life insurance policy and was texting Chad that she would still get the $4,000 in Social Security. We pick up today on some text messages between Lori and Chad from August 7th and 8th of 2019. Lori texts Chad, Mel wants to come up there tomorrow, but I said next Thursday to Sunday. What do you think? Then Lori, the same day, texts Melanice, we just had a big fight. Probably no go on next week. 2 minutes later, Lori gets a text from Chad that says, my heart is crushed, but I will never stop loving you. You're the best. And then the next day, on August the 8th at 1:17 p.m., Chad texts Lori, you're the best. I hope your day goes well. I adore you with kissy lips emojis, with a lips emoji. Later that evening at 7:42, he texts Lori, absolutely excruciating to be cut off from you. I love you. The reason these text messages caught the attention of the witness is because there's this conflict with Lori and Chad's relationship. The FBI agent points out the point of these texts is that Lori and Melanice wanted to go to Idaho to spend time with Chad, but Tammy is still alive and her trip that she wanted to take conflicted with a family trip Chad had planned. Also, when Chad sent that last text, Lori hasn't communicated with Chad for a day. The agent says the following text messages show Chad's religious visions are used to manipulate Lori. August 8th, 2019, 8:39 p.m., Chad texts Lori, good night, saddest day of my life. Grandpa Keith is here. I'm supposed to warn you, you are unprotected. The angels are angry, you are ignoring me. I told him to go back, but he says he isn't allowed to. I'm honestly not trying to manipulate you to respond. I understand you need your space, but they say you have cut me off and the protection I built around your house is gone. I love you and don't want you getting attacked. They said that if you at least give me a call, it will restore our connection enough to give some protection. Lori texts back just 20 minutes or so later, I love you with a kissy face and a heart emoji. Chad texts Lori back, thank you, my love. I will get things restored. The next text message they show is from August 10th at 10:15 p.m. It's a photo of Lori wearing a low-cut yellow one-piece swimsuit, and the text says, surprises are waiting. Really, they're manipulating each other. There's no one more than the other in this relationship, in my opinion. August the 10th, 10:29 p.m., Lori texts Chad, very good description of what just happened. Wish you were really here to experience this with me. Then she texts, thank you for being mine. Wish I could wake up and kiss your sweet, tender lips for real. You are my everything. Agent Hart said this caught his attention because the prior messages were about their abilities to portal and cuddle and be together. But in these messages, they both understand it's not real, saying, I wish you were really here. It's a good point. August the 11th, 1 month to the day, Charles was shot and killed. Chad says, I will join you. Partly why I'm so sad is my Boise trip has turned into a trip with extended family. Not happy about it. Lori texts back, how much more of this can you take? Chad says they want to go to Craters of the Moon National Park. I can't take much more, so trapped. Lori says, are we supposed to wait forever? The next text messages after this are lengthy. They're back and forth just about Chad's family vacation. Chad says, the next 2 days will be torture. I'll be alone Wednesday and beyond. Lori says, "Is that what he wants? Me sitting waiting for you endlessly and you wasting your time? It doesn't feel right. It feels so drawn out." Chad says, "I'm frustrated and sorry." Lori says, "You can't keep tearing my heart out. I can't take it anymore. I'm sorry." Chad tells her to look beyond the next 2 days. And Lori says, "What about the last 2 days? I didn't talk to you on your birthday. If you really loved me, you wouldn't want that either." Chad tells her one of his kids is there and he really couldn't talk. And Lori does her manipulation. "Give all your love and attention to your wife and family. I really want you to. I can't be in the way anymore. If things change, then we can talk, but we have nothing until things change anyway." Chad says, "Oh, honey, that is so crushing. I feel so destroyed inside. You know, my love for you is deep and real." He goes on to say, "I want change. I'm constantly begging for change. I want you. Nothing else matters, but I'm hindering your life and you deserve better. I love you so immensely, but I'll leave you alone, as excruciating as that will be, until I hear from you." Lori says, "You can't say to me nothing else matters because everything is before me. If that's what the Lord wants, I need to do something to pull myself out of this deep despair. It's not like me to be this way. It's been way too much, too long. The pain is unbearable." Chad says, "You're right. Put me aside until things change. Yes, the pain is unbearable." Lori says, "Are you going to threaten I'm unprotected for doing so?" And Chad says, "Absolutely not. I'm so upset at the circumstances that I'm demanding they protect you more than ever." Lori says, "I'm so alone without you. It's devastating." Chad says, "I feel so alone too. We are surrounded by telestial relatives that are simply obstacles. I'm so sick of it." Lori says, "Me too. What is it you really want?" Chad says, "I want to be with you. That is my greatest hope and dream. I would happily join you tomorrow if it felt heaven wouldn't strike us down." That was the end of direct for Agent Hart. On Cross, John Pryor, Lord have mercy, y'all. He's a reaching, but here we go. "You went through tens of thousands of messages, and these are what you thought were relevant." He asked if the agent reviewed messages with Melanie Gibb. Yes. He talks about the other names everybody had. Lori would be Lolo, Lily, Elena. Gibb would be Phoebe. Alex, usually called Al. Melanice would be Mel. And Chad would be Bubby. That was mainly used by Lori. Pryor brings up the "I want to be with you. That is my greatest hope and dream. I would happily join you tomorrow if he felt like heaven wouldn't strike us down." Then Pryor asks the agent, "How did you interpret this?" And the agent says, "I didn't, just read it into the record." But he does point out at this point, they've been in a 10-month relationship. And Pryor does the counting back and says, "That takes us to the end of October. Are you saying they started a physical relationship right off the bat?" The agent says, "Well, 2 weeks later, Chad wrote about it in great detail about kissing, being in bed together, taking each other's clothes off." Pryor asked if the agent's referring to the James and Elena loin fire story, and the agent says yes. So Pryor says, "Do you know what Chad does for a living?" He writes books about religious and other experiences with exaggerations. Do you agree? The agent says, "Well, if it's nonfiction." Pryor says James and Elena was a book in the making about his relationship with Lori, and the agent's like, "I didn't know that." He said, "I believe it's a truthful and accurate story." Pryor points out one of Chad's books mentions his daughter Emma, so it's not unusual for Chad to write about past experiences and to write about a relationship he was having with Lori. The agent says, "I think the book is about his relationship with Lori." Pryor says, "Well, maybe there's some artistic creativity in there if the facts are beneficial to the prosecution," and then there's an objection which is sustained. The agent says they were able to vet and verify parts of that story, but he doesn't know if the sexual aspect of the story is accurate. Pryor points out Chad mentions talking about joining her if heaven wouldn't strike us down. He says that has nothing to do with murder, does it? And the agent says, "I can't say it doesn't." Pryor says, "Well, maybe Chad felt he couldn't divorce Tammy." And the agent says, "I don't know what was in Chad's mind as to why heaven would strike him down if he joined Lori." Again, Pryor talks about the 10,000 texts the agent looked through and says, "I didn't see one that says, 'This is Chad. Let's kill the kids.' Show me the text that says, 'Let's kill the kids.'" There was an objection prior to this. It was overruled. But at this point, Judge Boyce jumps in and says it's argumentative. Pryor asks, "Are there any texts talking about killing the kids?" And the agent says there are several that talk in detail about the death of those two children. Pryor says in details about their deaths and what happened during their deaths, not let's kill the kids. Not sure where he was going with that, but the agent clearly thought the same thing and asked, what do you mean? Pryor says there's not a text that says, let's kill the kids. The agent says, in those words, no, but alluding to planning to kill the kids, yes. Pryor asked, what text are you referring to? And the agent said there are several between Chad and Lori mentioning taking the children and Chad's ability as a supposed visionary as to when that might happen. But Pryor says there's no specific text that says, let's kill the kids and live happily ever after. The agent says they talk about the deaths. They use words death and death percentages. So that's the conclusion I drew. He talks about how the number for the death percentages, in his opinion, provided the justification for the murders. Pryor moves on to Allie Bloomer. That was the woman who was friends with Brandon. Her husband's a cop. Kind of got involved there where Brandon didn't want Lori or Alex around the kids or around Melanie's house. Chad said the woman was 4.1 dark and the woman's husband, who was a cop, was a 3 dark. Pryor asks, are Allie and her husband dead? The agent says no. Pryor says, when you assign a number, is this part of the LDS faith? And the agent says, not to my knowledge. Here's my point. The two adults murdered in this whole saga were spouses. Well, you got Alex Cox, who dropped over dead, but Lori and Chad were in Hawaii, so physically probably didn't have their hands in it, but emotionally that could be talked about. Every one of the victims in this case in some way trusted Lori, Alex, and Chad. They didn't go around killing random people in their homes because they were dark. Pryor says, you said Chad was using his religious visions to manipulate Lori to stay with him, and the agent says yes. Then Pryor goes into how many people followed Chad, and the agent said between 6 and 10. Pryor asked if Gibb, her boyfriend, now husband, David Warwick, Zulema, and Melanice be included. The witness says yes. Pryor says it's not a large group, and the agent says no, but the conferences Chad spoke at were larger, but he doesn't know how Chad's messages were received by those attending. Pryor points out Chad wrote books long before Lori came along, and the agent agrees. Pryor points out Chad's followers are friends of his, and the agent says, yeah, but Lori and Alex were different with Chad than everybody else. And Pryor says, we're talking about a group of friends who have different religious beliefs. Then he asked if Lori was being sarcastic when she said, give all your love to your wife and family. And the agent says, well, if you look at Chad's reaction of that's crushing, I don't think he took it as being sarcastic. Pryor says, Chad says, I'm constantly begging for change, but I'm hindering your life and I love you so immensely. Pryor asked the witness, did anyone say, let's kill Tammy? The agent says, we found a number of texts about Tammy's death percentages in subsequent texts to this one. Pryor then asked, are you aware Chad was telling public audiences Tammy would have a short life? And the agent said, I'm not aware. He said this publicly, but he did say it to a number of people individually. Pryor asked if they were friends and family of Chad and Tammy, and the agent's like, the ones I know of, I'm not aware they knew Tammy. Pryor says that Chad was waiting for Tammy to pass away. The agent says that, or waiting to take action. And from the investigation, I think I know what it was. Pryor says, well, people differ in their opinions. Well, Pryor, we know he's got it out for Melanie Gibbs. So he pulls in a text from July 25th, 2019 from Melanie Gibbs to Lori. I'm doing pretty good, thanks. I love you so much. I'm going to teach right now. Teaching about diminishing and shutting off dark portals. Gibbs sends another text that she could see the darkness last night when she was teaching. Their eyes were like marbles. Pryor points out Gibb taught classes about a variety of things, and the agent says, I don't know about teaching, I just know about podcasts. Pryor asks when Gibb talks about dark portals, is that LDS consistent? And also eyes like dark marbles, is that consistent with LDS teachings? And the agent says no. They talk about Chad being the one to make up the numbers of who was light and who was dark. There was that one instance where Lori disputed a number that was put on a singer by Chad, but the agent said that's the only time he ever saw anybody dispute a light or dark rating that Chad put on someone. They move on to sealings, which is a private ceremony. And the agent says, yes, they're when people are getting married. On redirect, Lindsay Blake brings up that sealings can be done with two people standing in place of people who have passed away. It's a proxy sealing. Genealogy is done, and based on historical records, if they had been married, people can stand in for people who are being sealed. The agent points out when Lori and Chad were sealed in the temple, Charles and Tammy both were still alive. And with sealing, you would be married for eternity. She moves on to the light dark. You were asked about Allie Bloomer. Was she an earthly relative of Chad or Lori's? He said no. Prosecutor Blake points out relatives were earthly obstacles, and he says yes. She asks, were Charles, Tylee, JJ, and Tammy deemed dark? He said Charles and Tylee were. JJ and Tammy were deemed a zombie, which is parallel to being dark. And then she asks, who determined who was light and dark? And the agent says Chad. Lindsay Blake goes in for it here. Of those 4 relatives we talked about, are you aware of their current status? The agent says, all 4 are dead. Boom. Pryor did say he may recall this witness. I don't know why. Cross did not go good for him. Next witness, Sydney Woodbury Shank. That was JJ's babysitter in Rexburg one time. On September 18th, 2019, she was contacted by Lori to babysit JJ. Lori told her JJ had autism, difficulty focusing, behavior issues, and just needed extra help. Lori told Sydney they moved from Arizona and that her husband had a heart attack and JJ was struggling. Lori did not mention Tylee by name, but did say Tylee was attending college and would come by occasionally to do her laundry or babysit, but really didn't want to babysit without being paid. Lori told Sydney she needed to pick up a friend from the airport. That would be Melanie Gibb. So the next day, the 19th of September, Sydney came over and watched JJ for about 4 hours or so. Lori told Sydney what to feed him, what activities he could do. And Lori said if she was late getting home, the babysitter could give JJ his sleeping medication. The witness said JJ played with the neighbor kid most of the time. When Lori was on her way home, the babysitter went to get him, and JJ was upset about fighting over a toy and had a hard time calming down. Just a reminder at this point, JJ has not been medicated in months. Being medicated is crucial for consistency in behavior with autistic kids. At this point, Lori calmed JJ down. She paid Sydney. Sydney left. A couple of days later, Sydney sent a message asking to babysit again, thinking it would be a few times a week job based on their prior communication. But Lori said JJ went with his grandparents for a month and said she was in Hawaii for a month and to reach out later on. About a month later. A month later, the witness called Lori and texted, no response, never heard from her again. Now, Cross Pryor, I don't know what he's doing, trying to blame a murdered child, unmedicated autistic child at that. He asked what time Lori returned home. Sydney said it was around supper time, 6 o'clock. She got there around 1 to watch, and Lori left with Alex. Pryor goes into JJ's behavior. The witness said he was freaking out a bit. He threw the ottoman in the chair, then ran and just kind of wanted his own space. She heard something fall, and when she went to check, a mirror had broken. Pryor here, I think, goes very, very low. I don't think this is going to set well with the jury at all, but he said, Lori warned you JJ had behavior problems, but maybe not as much as you experienced. He was misbehaving, throwing tantrums, throwing things upstairs, throwing things downstairs, climbing on the furniture. And this was Thursday the 19th, and you were all alone. She just explained there was drama over at his little friend's house, and JJ had a hard time sharing. Pryor asked, were you aware JJ and Tylee had a close relationship? The witness said no. Pryor said, you told the officer, you told Lori about JJ's behavior, and to some extent, it was still going on. And the witness said that Lori was too comforting and wasn't correcting the behavior with JJ. Pryor asked if JJ's behavior continued when Lori got home, and the witness said he did calm down a little bit when she got home. Pryor asked who they pick up at the airport. She doesn't know the name. He asked if Lori or Alex ever used the word zombie. Then asked the babysitter, did you hear JJ use the word zombie? No, don't understand that line at all, y'all, but that was it. The next witness, Dr. Josh Wilson, he's the principal at JJ School in Rexburg. His first day was September 3rd, 2019. Lori told the principal they were moving there from Arizona because her husband died of a heart attack, and they were moving, I think he said, to be closer to family. JJ was enrolled there a total of 3 weeks. Lori reached out, said they were moving back to Arizona. The principal told her to request records from there, but she said JJ had a cousin with similar needs and would be homeschooled. The records were never requested. On cross, how long did he attend? 3 weeks. Did you ever see Chad Daybell at the school? No. The next witness, Wynn Hill, was the dean of students at BYU I. Testimony was Tylee was never enrolled. On cross, did you talk to Lori on the phone? Nope. Did you discuss an application with Alex? Lori? No. Did you ever hear anything from a Chad Daybell about an application for Tylee? No. That was it for morning testimony. They ran through these witnesses really quickly. So there's an extended lunch break by the time this goes out. I'm sure we'll be back from lunch. I'll do the afternoon testimony later on this evening. Until then, hope you guys have a good rest of your afternoon. We'll see you soon.